Junk food is a term that's ubiquitous in modern society. We all intuitively know that we shouldn't eat junk food, or at least shouldn't eat a lot of junk food. But when you question someone about what is junk food, you'll quickly bump up against a wall of ignorance. People don't actually know what junk food is and what it ain't. And in this video, I want to give you 7 signs that you can use to detect whether the thing you're about to eat is junk food or whether it's actual real food that's going to provide a benefit to your body and your brain. Also included in this video at the end is a bonus sign that you can use to even more specifically differentiate, is what you're about to eat junk food or is it real human food. In a perfect world, junk food would be identified as such, and you would know right off the bat, this is junk food, this is candy, this is cake, this is pie, this is junk food. I can eat this as an occasional treat. I can give it to my children as an occasional reward, but it's not something that I should eat on a daily basis. If I do so, it will lead to chronic inflammation and other diseases. But as is the case with many things in modern society, junk food has been obfuscated as a concept through advertising and other means. Big corporations have fooled us into thinking that many junk foods are actually healthy. They've actually put lots of things on labels that is now fortified with this. This will prevent this disease or that disease, a healthy source of this, that, or the other. And this has gone on for so many decades now that many of us have no damn idea what's junk food and what's actually real meaningful food. So I thought that this deserved its own video. So I'm going to help you in this video to understand and also be able to tease out, is this thing that I'm about to give my child or my elderly relative, is this junk food or is this actual real human food? I'm Dr. Ken Berry, a family physician, and in this video I'm going to give you the 7 ways you can detect if something that you're about to ingest is junk food or if it's something you can be proud to eat. Now, as with any good polemic, we need to start off with some definitions, because indeed the definitions of these words have become so muddy, so cloudy, that people don't know what the definitions of these words are. And let's start off with a very basic word. Let's start off with food. What's the definition of food? That's very important, actually. Just like the definition of the word pound or kilogram. Those words better have a very specific definition, or we're all going to be using them differently and meaning different things when we use that same word that should mean a particular thing. So Merriam-Webster says that food is a material consisting essentially of protein, carbohydrate, and fat used in the body of an organism to sustain growth, repair, and vital processes, and to furnish energy. So food is actually a thing, a specific thing, that has specific actions and benefits when it is ingested. Okay, so what about junk food? It must have a specific definition as well, and indeed it does. Merriam-Webster has 2 different definitions. Number 1 is a food that is high in calories but low in nutritional content. Now, we could argue about the first point that they make here, but the second point I think is very, very adequate and accurate. Low in nutritional content. Now remember, the actual definition of food and what food is intended for is to give your body nutrition. So junk food, by definition, doesn't do a very good job of providing this nutrition. I think their second definition is more accurate most of the time. Something that is appealing or enjoyable, but of little or no real value. And the value in this case would be to provide nutrition for your human body. Now, the term junk food is quite interesting when you start digging into where it came from. When was this first used? It was first used back in the 1940s and 50s as a negative term that was used to describe food that didn't have any nutritional value to speak of. And so you'll think, well, gosh, junk food, I mean, that definition should have been around for centuries, really, if you think about it. But the thing is, before about 100 years ago, there was no such thing as junk food. Before we started making food-like products in factories, there was no such thing as junk food. There was either food or non-food. And so you knew to eat the meat from the cow, but you knew not to eat the cow shit from the back of the cow. One was food, one was not food for humans. And it was very clear, there was a very clear demarcation between food and non-food. You could eat the butter that came from the milk of the cow, but you wouldn't eat the hay that the cow was fed. One was human food, the other was not human food. Only when corporations started to make food-like products did they have any need to cloudy the definition of what food was. Now, let me say right up front that I don't have anything against junk food as long as it is marketed as junk food. And so if you want to eat some Starburst or some jelly beans or some jelly donuts, and you know this is junk food, I know it is not good for my body, but I want to eat it because I enjoy it, it is pleasurable, then that's fine. Do that. But what I want you to be is an informed consumer, and I do not want you to be misled by false advertising. And so that's where these 7 signs of junk food are going to come to your rescue and protect you and your family from eating junk food when you think that you're eating real food. So, without further ado, here are Dr. Berry's 7 signs that what you're about to ingest is in fact junk food. Number 1, junk food has a very long shelf life. So you're gonna find it on a shelf, and it might be in a cardboard box or a plastic wrapper, but this is stuff that you could literally sit out at room temperature, open to the elements, and it would last for weeks or months, or in some cases even years. Real food doesn't behave that way. You can't take a pound of ground beef and set it out on the counter and leave it there for several days and then eat it safely, because bacteria love the nutrition that's found in real food, and bacteria or fungus will immediately start to break down that real food and use it for the nutrition that it contains. Bacteria and fungi have been around for millions and millions of years. They're very intelligent consumers, and they're not going to fall for junk food no matter how heavily it's advertised. That's why you can take a processed junk food and set it out on the counter for days, weeks, even months, in some cases even years. And bacteria and fungus, they don't fall for the advertising. They're not going to eat it, and therefore it doesn't spoil. This is a great way to know if what you're about to ingest is junk food. If it has a shelf life of weeks or longer, it's more than likely junk food. Sign number 2 is if the food you're about to ingest has more than 5 ingredients on the label or contains any preservatives whatsoever. Real food usually has 1 ingredient. It is beef, or it is eggs, or it is broccoli. You see how there's just 1 ingredient. Now, some people, in an attempt to make a little profit on that food, they might add something like salt, right? Or they might add something like butter. But that's it. There's 1 or 2, maybe 3 ingredients in real food, and that's all you're going to find. And in many cases, you go to a restaurant and you order a steak, it's going to have some seasoning and it's going to have some salt. That's it. It's still real food, right? But if you look and you see a label that looks like this, or this, or this, you can be on the alert that this is probably junk food, and it's not going to give you any nutritional benefit, but it is going to lead to inflammation and chronic disease. The 3rd sign is a great rule of thumb, and I love to use this one. Did humans have access to this food more than 150 years ago? If so, it's real food. If not, then it is junk food that is not something that you're going to eat that satisfies the definition of the word food that we looked at earlier. So if our ancestors, if your great-great-great-great-grandfather knew what this was and would have said, oh, great, I'm hungry, I'm going to eat this food, then that's probably real food. If it is newer than 150 years of age, then it's very highly likely that it's junk food. Now, there is another category of food known as slave food or prisoner food or subject food that I'm going to talk about in another video in the near future on this channel. And although that's not as ideally nutritional as real actual food is, it would still fall under my definition of real food and not junk food. You use this kind of food to keep prisoners or slaves or subjects of a king alive in a case where you're not really interested in their optimal nutrition. You just want to keep them from starving to death. But that's another video. Let's get back to junk food. Sign 4 that what you're about to eat may be junk food is that it's essentially devoid of nutrition. Now remember back to the definition of food. Nutrition is it's absolutely required to meet the definition of food. It doesn't mean that it's edible. It doesn't mean that it's tasty or delicious or gives you a sugar high afterwards or makes you feel really full and content. None of those are the definition of food. And so if what you're about to eat essentially is devoid of vitamins and minerals, amino acids and fatty acids that are essential and required for your optimal function and nutrition, then it's probably junk food. Sign number 5 that what you're about to eat or drink is junk food is that it is fortified with something or has added vitamin this or mineral that, because you don't have to fortify real foods. You only have to fortify foods that are devoid of nutrition. And so nobody says, oh, here's my ribeye that I'm selling. It's now fortified with, oh, wait, you don't have to fortify it with anything. It's loaded with literally every single vitamin, mineral, amino acid, and fatty acid that you need for optimal function. The same goes for vegetables. The same goes for nuts. The same goes for berries. They're full of nutrition. You don't have to fortify them with anything. But if you have made a food-like product that is essentially junk food, if you want to hide the fact that it's junk food, because that's what it really is, then you might fortify it with a few vitamins and minerals, and that would give you this simulacra of real food. It's not really food at all. It's junk food, but since it's fortified or has vitamins or minerals added, then maybe you can slip it into the definition of real food, since it's not completely nutrient void, since you added some chemical vitamins and minerals to it. That's a huge sign that what you're about to eat is junk food. Sign number 6 that what you're about to eat is that it requires no preparation. Okay, now there are many examples of real foods that don't require preparation. You can eat steak raw as long as it's fresh. You can just slice it up and eat it. You can eat broccoli raw. You don't have to prepare it. But what I'm talking about is something that is shelf stable that also requires no preparation. So if you bought something that had spent a couple of weeks on a cargo ship coming across from another continent, and then spent a few months in a warehouse, and then spent another month or two on the shelves at your store unrefrigerated, but you can still open it and eat it immediately, that's junk food. There's no way around that. That can't contain any meaningful nutrition, or the bacteria and the funguses that I talked about earlier. They would have already had their fill of that and it would be spoiled. So if it requires no nutrition, no preparation after you take it out of the bag or the box, that's junk food. Sign number 7 that what you're about to eat is junk food is that the corporation that made it for you so lovingly, with no thought of any kind of profit model, they just want you to have this delicious, nutritious food-like substance, is that on the payroll of that corporation, there are food scientists and flavor specialists, because real food just tastes good and human beings know intuitively, oh, that tastes delicious. This is good. I'm going to eat this. That's real food. But if you have to mess with the flavors, if you have to add flavor additives and you have to add olfactory stimulants to make this taste and smell more like real food, then it's probably junk food. And indeed, all of the large food manufacturing corporations, they employ food scientists and flavor specialists and olfactory specialists who try to make the junk food that this corporation makes and markets to you, they try to make it smell and taste like real food. They try to hit the triggers in your animal brain that make you not only want to eat this junk, but also make you want to eat a lot of this junk, and also make you want to eat a lot of this junk often, because that's where they're going to get their $1 billion of profit each year, is from having you fooled and having you tricked into thinking that this junk food is real food, and you're going to eat a lot of it, and you're going to eat it often. Now for the bonus sign that what you're about to eat is junk food. If it was made in a factory, if it was manufactured in a factory, then it's junk food. By definition, real food is either grown from the earth, from dirt, or it grazes on what grows from the dirt. And with this bonus, you can remove all doubt as to whether what you're about to eat is junk food or not junk food. If it didn't grow in the dirt, as in the form that you're about to eat it, or it grazed on what grew from the dirt, then it is junk food. It is not human food. If you can think of a sign that differentiates real food from junk food that I left out, put it in the comments below. Also, if you can think of a junk food that satisfies all 7 of my signs and somehow sneaks through my definition of junk food and makes it into the real food category, then please also include that in the comments, because I'm always trying to get better at what I do. Now, at this point, you may be asking the question, so what? What does it matter if it's junk food or not? If I enjoy eating, if it tastes good, and it fills my belly up, then what does it matter to you, Dr. Barry? Well, here's why it matters to me. Because I'm a doctor. Because I want for you optimal health. And the only way you're ever going to get optimal health is if you enjoy daily optimal nutrition. That's what leads to the default optimal health. That should be the birthright of all human beings. But as you know, if you live in modern society and go outside and look out your window or go to a crowded area and just look around at people, people ain't healthy. People are obese, they're very sick, they're fatigued, they're unhappy, they have mental issues, they have physical issues. How does junk food lead to that? And so the reason that we need to know the difference between junk food and real food is that junk food is highly processed. It's overly processed. And when you overly process something that started as real food, then you wind up with something that's inflammatory. You destroy all the vitamins that are in it, and in many cases leach out many of the minerals that were in the original real food, and you're left with something that's just nutrient void. Also, if a junk food starts out with bad basic ingredients, right? So it starts out with the 3 main ingredients of sugar, grains, and vegetable seed oils, 2 of which would fall into the slave food or the prisoner food or the subject food category, the sugar and the grains, and then vegetable seed oil, something that human beings have never eaten since the last about 110, 120 years. When you can make so many different products from those 3 ingredients and not provide any meaningful nutrition, indeed most of the things that are made from those 3 ingredients are fortified with this vitamin or this mineral because they just don't naturally contain it, that's bad for you. And that's going to lead to blood sugar spikes, that's going to lead to insulin spikes, that's going to lead to inflammation, which is going to make you and your family members sick. In an effort to make the junk food more shelf-stable or to make it more palatable, the big food corporation is going to put additives and preservatives into the junk food. It's going to make the color more attractive. It's going to make the taste more tasty. It's going to make the smell more pleasing. Or it's going to basically fend off the bacteria and fungus that would normally eat any real food that you put in a plastic bag or a cardboard box. Once they've added all these unhealthy chemical additives, it's no longer real food, and it actually becomes quite inflammatory. Indeed, many of the chemical vitamins and minerals that they add to junk food to try to give it the air of being real food are made in a chemical factory and can be quite unhelpful to the human body. In many cases, can actually lead to inflammation. Now, I hope this video has helped you to draw a very clear, demarcated line between what is real food for human beings and what is junk food that perhaps you can enjoy occasionally, rarely, if you like it, but never again will you be tricked by a big food manufacturer into eating junk food when what you thought you were really eating was real food. If you have any questions about this video or you think I made any mistakes, please put that in the comments below so that I can make better videos in the future. This is Dr. Berry. I'll see you next time.